Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering One Piece, episodes 244 and 245. In these episodes, Icebarg finds out that not only are CP9 the people closest to him that he trusted, but they have pretty much figured out everything else he has been up to that he was keeping as a sort of like backup, and it sucks. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to the One Piece crew for commissioning this episode. So these two episodes were like a lot of... The first of the two was a lot of talking. And the second one is a lot of fighting. And we get the reveals in the first of these two episodes. First of all, Lucci is like clearly the sort of brains of the operation, and I'm sure the others would argue with that, but they're letting him be the spokesman for all of them, so I feel like that's kind of gotta be how it is. And he has a whole idea on what's going on with the blueprints. So the Pluton blueprints, the last episode ended with him and the rest of the crew being like, where are they? Where's the blueprints? But then when we rejoin them in this episode, it turns out they've got a pretty good idea of the blueprints, actually, where they are. And their whole... Lucci keeps using the word hypothesis. He really seems to enjoy that word. But his hypothesis is circumstantial, but sound. And what he has figured out is that if Icebarg were setting them up with fake blueprints, that means that he is planning a contingency for if somebody comes at him trying to steal them. And if he had planned that contingency, then likely he will have also planned for his own death, for potentially what happens if something, goes down where I am taken out, and if I have hidden the plans somewhere that only I know about, they're lost forever. Nobody's ever going to see them again. So that won't do. He has to give them to someone. And the guys have noticed a signature at the bottom of the fake blueprints, I think. It's the fakes, right? And it says Tom and Icebarg and something Cuddy? Can't remember. It's a weird name. I think that's it. But either way, it doesn't really matter because he does not go by that anymore. They see these names and they're like, oh, really? And apparently, like, Tom was a shipwright who, from what I'm hearing, was like the person who sort of mentored Icebarg, and correct me if I'm wrong on that. But he, everybody seems pretty certain he's dead. I'm not really sure they should be that confident about it, but also I don't really know anything about this, so that's fine. However, Cuddy Flam, thank you guys. Cuddy Flam is a name that rang a bell because one of them, I think it was Khalifa, really early on, somebody named Cuddy Flam comes for an appointment, and Icebarg tells her to send him away. And it is just that one time that he used that name in their presence, apparently. But Khalifa seems to have like a mind like a steel trap, as they say. And she remembers who it is, and it is Frankie. And evidently, he had worked as a shipwright until he decided to go and do his own shit, right? Like, yeah, Seraphim says, yes, Tom was Icebarg and Cuddy Flam's mentor. Okay. And I don't know if the rest of the people, like, working for him were connected at all, working for Frankie, you know, that are in his, like, pirate crew now. Or if he just decided to go off purely on his own and managed to attract a crew from the mere force of personality, which he certainly has a lot of. But I don't think they're connected in any way. But what it turns out Icebarg did was give the Pluton blueprints to Frankie. And he, they believe, still has them. And he, you know, he's like right here on this island. He hasn't even gone away. So this is not going to be that big an obstacle for them. My question is, where would he keep them? Because if he kept them in his house, that place got pretty much totaled. So there will be a whole different kind of search. You know, it's not just like going through somebody's things. You have to like sift through rubble potentially. On the other hand, Frankie is a cyborg. So I don't know. He may just have a little like fucking document drawer in his butt. And he just keeps all of his necessary paperwork in there. And that's where he goes to get his ID when he wants to rent a car. I don't know. But I'm just saying, you know, if it were a person, you would probably assume there is some place that they need to keep it because blueprints are like fairly big. You know, it's not like carrying around a business card or something. So they wouldn't have them on their person. But with Frankie, I really don't know if that's true. And I don't know what his, like, other than his home, what his sort of, like, home base would be, you know? So all of that information, I am assuming the CP9 people do know because they've been here a minute. Frankie is known to them. And Lucci admits that, like, they really overlooked Frankie as a possibility because he is so the opposite of reputable. And just, there was nothing about him that suggested he would be a person that Icebarg would trust with something like this, you know? So let's see. Demian says Frankie seems like exactly the type of person to put that kind of drawer into his butt of all places. He really does. I feel like he would enjoy the joke. You know, he's like, oh, you want my birth certificate? Where do you think I'm keeping that? Up my ass? Hey, you're right. And he just pops the drawer out. He's like, let me draw my drawers. Am I right? Anyway, I'm so sorry. Okay. So I'm going to back up here a little bit, but we have the poor fucking Usopp. Frankie has decided that he is going to take Usopp prisoner. And in the second of these two episodes, we do not get anything of this, which I was really frustrated by. We focus all of our time and attention on Icebarg and Luffy and, you know, because it's basically the reunion of all characters except for Frankie and Usopp. Everyone else is in this room. And I am so worried for Usopp, and I just really hate this for him a lot. So he is in the middle of trying to repair the Mary, and like watching this, guys, it is so pathetic. He is just patching these big holes in the hull with these little baby pieces of wood in a way that just, even in cartoon speak, I am not buying that this is working. I just don't see it. And there is a moment, I was so glad that Zorro asked the question. There is a moment later where Zorro is fighting with Square Nose, and Square Nose is like, Zorro asks him, so did you lie about the Mary? Since you guys were pretending to be shipwrights, were you full of shit about that? And he says, unfortunately, I was not. So that's our answer on that, which I do kind of like, because Lucci says something when he's in the middle of telling Icebarg, like, here's what I think you did. In the beginning of it, he's grandstanding a little bit on how thoroughly they fooled Icebarg, and he says something like, don't worry though, we took our jobs as shipwrights really seriously. And I don't know why, but that like tickled me a lot, because there was a sense for me of like, I know that you're a decent person, and probably you're wondering, if we made a bunch of ships that just sank 3 miles out from the coast, don't worry. No, we didn't. We made good shit. We did our job. So just rest easy on that for now, because you will be dead shortly. But I don't know. There is a part of me that does kind of appreciate that, like, reassurance, because it's not the kind of thing I really was worried about. To be honest, I assumed that they were doing their jobs properly, because I feel like they were undercover long enough that I feel if they hadn't been taking their jobs super seriously, it probably would have started to circle back on them and bite them in the ass. So I was under the assumption they were, but I like being told, look, I'm never going to be mad at competence. I'm just never going to be mad at it. It's always in style. It's always fresh. So this information about the Mary actually being like totaled, essentially, we don't get that until later. And knowing it now and watching this little moment of Usopp trying to repair everything, I was just like, oh, this is so much worse, bruh. And Frankie is coming up to him and sort of remembering Usopp begging for the money back and just being like really cut up about it. And Frankie is like, okay, so I guess that must be what he needed it for. But his little backup dancers are like, it doesn't seem like he realizes the storm is coming tonight. Like, he isn't preparing for that at all. And Frankie says, what a waste of effort. Like, he's just repairing the ship, and then this, tempest is going to come and probably destroy the thing that this boy is putting all of his work into. And there was a part of me that appreciated that Frankie was just like, oh man, he wanted money to repair this thing. And it's not even like, even if I gave him the money, he would have poured it all into the ship, and for what? For no reason. And I know that's not really what he's saying. I'm giving Frankie a lot more credit here than he deserves, but nevertheless, so he doesn't come in quite as hot as I thought he would. I'm thinking he's going to come up to Usopp and he is going to immediately like begin to beat the shit out of him again. But instead, he comes up behind him. I love Usopp being like, who's there? And I'm like, dude, who do you think? How many men have this fucking silhouette? And this, like, the poor kid, he just went through some trauma. And he is having to face this man again. I swear. Usopp cannot catch a goddamn break. We need Usopp to take a vacation. Like, can we give him... They're on a ship all the time. Go to some lovely tropical island with a nice beach. Find a resort. I don't know. Maybe there's one on Water 7. Doubtless. It looks like a very touristy place. And just have a couple cocktails and chill in the hot tub for a few days and just be cool. How about that? I am longing for those, I hear, notorious beach episodes that happen in anime. I hear that's a big thing based on one of the episodes of, I think it was Legend of Korra. But yeah, that is what I would like. And I would like 3 of them in a row. I would like enough of one to really feel like our kids got a break. They got to refuel. Their adventures aren't life or death, you know? And that the stakes are low enough that any hijinks they get into is just for the fun. It's not, I'm going to lose a crewmate forever, or we're going to be in debt to this guy, or and just like the hijinks today are, oh, the like soup I had for lunch was the best I've ever had, and the chef won't give me the recipe, so now I have to find a way to steal the recipe. Those kind of stakes, like real low. Basically, I guess I'm saying I want a filler, but the fillers are always still very actiony. I don't want that kind. So I'm going to write a fanfic, I think, and just sort of wedge it into this spot where Usopp gets to recuperate from his fucking injuries and drink pina coladas and chill and tell wild stories to a crop of people who don't know he's a liar yet, so that he can just enjoy himself to the fullest. And that's all I'm saying. So he, like, you know, pulls his hammer up and is just like, what are you doing here, you bastard? And Frankie just grabs him by the hammer and is like, hey, so this storm is coming. I don't know if you're aware of that, but I guess you and the ship can both be my hostages, because I have a score to settle with the Straw Hats. So I'm here to kidnap you. And he says, I'm here to kidnap you. And the animation cuts from him saying that, and he raises his sunglasses to, like, look at him in this way that's genuinely, like, off-putting. And it cuts right from there to Zorro swinging his blade into somebody. And for a moment, I thought Zorro was here to, like, rescue Usopp. And I got really excited. And I know I shouldn't have thought that, because we are aware that he is all the fucking way over there. Like, he's nowhere nearby. He would not know about this. But just for a second, I just entertained the thought that maybe Zorro was here to save the day, and Usopp would not have to go through being taken as a hostage. Now, granted, Usopp suffered the most humiliating defeat he has ever suffered, I would say, at the hands of Frankie and his men. So if Usopp just is absolutely not up for it, I'm not going to be mad at him. But I do want to say, the way that Frankie takes him hostage feels very chill. Like, Frankie, like I said, he doesn't come in and hit him. He doesn't come in and grab him and tie him up or anything like that. He wants just a... Seraphim says, remember back in Skypiea when you wanted more steaks? Yeah, that's true. I just, like, it's just because he's, like, literally still a mummy. Like, he's a head to toe bandage. It's just given this man needs time, you know? But the way that Frankie is handling him, he grabs, like I said, he grabs Usopp by the hammer. He doesn't even put his hands on his person. And I know, again, I'm probably giving him too much credit, but I like to think he's like, I'm not going to grab you, man. Look at you. You're fucked up. I'm not going to just, like, try and muscle you into anything right away, because you clearly have some injuries, and I don't really want to cope with that. And I'm hoping that his entire energy here is going to be like, this doesn't have to be terrible. You could just come with us and you'll just be our hostage and it's fine. It's like, you know, I'll make you something to eat. We've got a bed. You can relax. And I don't, like, I'm not trying to fool myself into thinking that were he like this, that Usopp would just go with it. Because like I said, this man humiliated him, hurt him, stole from him. So Usopp is not going to be cool with Frankie. It's just not happening. That said, though, I can dream. I can imagine that they somehow became, like, if not cordial, at least civil. Just because there's a part of me that weirdly likes Frankie. I don't know. Something about this guy. So, all right. When we go to Zorro, he is once again handling all of the men in this courtyard. I love Nami and Chopper just being like, dude, for real? Nami is the one who's like, dude, you took all of them out. I know you used the back of your blade, but look. And I just adore Chopper with the dub. Wow, you're so strong. Chopper is just right there to cheerlead anytime you need it. Chopper is so impressed. It doesn't matter if you deserve it. It doesn't matter. Like, Zorro does deserve it. I'm not trying to take away from him. But just Chopper literally, wow, you're so strong. It's like giving Betty Boop. You know, I don't know. It just cracked me up. There is something about Chopper that I'm like, Chopper is gay. Chopper is a bottom. That is Chopper for me. And he's a cinnamon roll and I love him. Everybody needs to protect Chopper more. Usopp and Chopper need to be kept in like a separate place. Like they need to have, you know what they should have? If they build a new ship, they should have like the room for the normies. And that is where Nami and Chopper and Usopp will go. And it is a panic room, basically, that's like lined with metal and nobody can get through. And they sleep in there for protection while the other absolute monsters sleep out on the deck or wherever and are always in charge of like guarding them. Because that's part of the responsibility you take on. With great devil fruit comes great necessity to protect the cinnamon rolls. That is, I'm pretty sure how that quote goes. So yeah, this movie, and the voice actress who does Chopper is just so good. Like, just that, wow, you're so strong. I just love it so much. It's so good. Okay. And also like the sparkles that happen on either side of his head when he says it. Oh, precious. So I love this. They are trying to find their way through the building and we get these like shouty bubbles of each of them getting frustrated because of course Zorro is like getting lost and just kind of wandering wherever, and they manage to eventually find their way, but it's no thanks to him pretty much is what it comes down to. So then we cut to Luffy, and he is using the fact that he has a rubber body to get out of these holds that they have been like, I don't even know what to call these. It's not just, like handcuffs. They have been fastened to the wall in a way that you would do to like something you're trying to display. And he is stretching himself to get out of stuff. And there isn't this moment that I found so funny, you guys. So he stretches himself out so hard that he winds up sort of catapulting himself into the wall, but he is unhurt, as is his wont. And he stands up, and Polly, he says something like, all right, now come and help me. And in the great tradition of One Piece, they use the same 3 animation frames over and over again for Polly's like commentary. But he is like saying to himself something like, yeah, and then I'll be able to get you bastards for doing this to me. But the length of the pauses between him saying this and the fact that Luffy is already free, you can't see Luffy when Polly is talking, but it just sort of left me with the impression that Polly had just asked Luffy for help. And Luffy says, sure, as he turns around. But then it felt like Luffy just must have stopped dead and watched Polly sort of have this moment. Because we don't actually see Luffy begin to help Polly in this scene. I have to assume that it was just like not part of what they felt like animating. So it's Luffy is already free, and then it's just this like I don't even want to call it a monologue because it's not quite that long, but it was enough time that I was like, Luffy, hey buddy, he asked for your help, what are you doing? And I just imagined him saying sure and standing and just straight watching this guy, which I know that Polly was not part of the baddies, but I don't know why it just makes it. One would think that I would be like, oh, well, I like Polly better now because he's not part of CP9, and so he's not a bad man. TM. He's just a bad man because I don't like him. But really, where I'm at is contempt. Like, Polly, not only did you get fooled by these guys, which I could forgive because, like, whatever, you know, I'm not saying I wouldn't be fooled by people. People are damn good liars sometimes. But I am very contemptuous of the way he processes the information. Because later on, he comes into the room and they are all there, like, you know, standing over Icebarg, who is prone on the floor, having been shot again. And Polly, like, basically accuses them all of just fucking with him. Like, they are setting him up like this is a fucking punked episode. And Polly, I don't know how I would process the shock of finding out people were not who I thought. But I don't think I would be like, hey guys, what are you doing? You're making it look like you're the bad guys, but that can't be true. So what are you doing with these masks? Polly. Just it's like the whole picture in my head is a man walks in on his wife fucking some other man and is like, Lori, you have your legs open and this man is penetrating you and it's really making it look like you were cheating on me. But I know that can't be true. So what is going on here? Would you care to explain yourself? Oh my God. Yeah, so Polly, he's all slow to catch on. And I fucking, like, this is part of me not liking Polly, of course, is he's flashing back to, you know, all the good times he spent with these dudes who he felt like he knew and that they were friends. And, like, a big part of one of the flashbacks is just him reprimanding Khalifa for wearing a skirt that was too short. And I'm like, for real, man? That's your, like, fond memory of thinking back to you all joking around is you slut-shaming her and the other dudes, like, defending her to you because you're being a dick? It's just so not the energy that most shows would go with if they want to establish people used to be friends and felt close and now he's betrayed. That scene isn't it. That's not what you would usually go for. And I know it's meant to be lighthearted, but just really, like, you know, I will say too, it's another point against Polly that he's slut-shaming her to begin with. And then it's another point for CP9 because it's Square Nose just saying literally, if you don't like it, don't look at her. And I was like, damn right, Square Nose, thank you. That's all I'm saying. You don't have to like what she's wearing, but just fucking keep your mouth shut and keep your eyes somewhere else and move on with your goddamn life. So apparently CP9 is a little bit more woke than Polly is. And I'm just kind of on their side because of this again. He's just not really doing what I need for him to do as a good guy here. And I should mention too that I think is the name of the bird Cuckoo? I can't remember. But while Lucci is telling Icebarg, here's what I think, you did with the blueprints, he has him monitoring Icebarg's pulse. And that is what he sort of uses. It's like, the old, the no longer allowed in court, what do you call it? Lie detection test, which honestly, it is wild to me because they are not allowed in court ostensibly, but they are still done. And they are they're not meant to be presented as evidence, but the results still get out and certainly must play a part in things. And I am, y'all, I can't get over how often it's done. Every Snapped episode that I listen to, there's a lie detector test administered to somebody. And what's always the most fun to me is that people continually think that they can beat it. And it's interesting that they are wrong so much of the time, and yet lie detectors are unreliable, and they're unreliable enough, they are inadmissible. So even if you don't beat it, you can just say, well, it's wrong. Y'all know these things don't work. It's just sort of a weird, it almost feels sometimes like the murderers want to flex. And so they're like, yeah, I'll take a lie detector test. Come at me. And then they fail it, and their failure, they immediately kind of capitulate after that. That's the first step towards them starting to be like, all right, well, maybe I do know something. Huh? How about that? But they never just go, lie detector tests are inadmissible for a reason, because they're bullshit. And this is bullshit. I failed it. I did not kill her. So if I failed it, it is wrong. So I don't know what to tell you, which is the energy you actually want to bring to something like that. But anyway, so, the bird is Hattori. Kaku is monitoring the pulse. I thought the bird was monitoring the pulse. I got it mixed up, you guys. I swear to God, I thought the bird was doing it. That is hysterical. Kaku is the name of Square Nose. Okay, yeah, he just does not look like a Kaku to me. He is, Dennis. He is giving a Dennis vibe. Seraphim says, more A plus Oda pun naming. Hato equals pigeon. Tori equals bird. His name is just Pigeon Bird. That's way funnier than it really is. You know what I mean? That's something that's it's not that funny, but the more I think about it, the funnier I think it is. This is one of those moments where I'm just like, did I take an edible earlier? Is that why this is really getting to me? Because that is cracking me up. Thank you, Seraphim. So anyway, his pulse goes up, and basically Lucci is like, yeah, well, see, I can tell everything I said was correct because your pulse gave you away. And I do enjoy the intermittent, focusing on Icebarg's hand and the way it sort of pulses against the screen, and sometimes it'll go sort of transparent over the flashback footage. I thought that was a really neat way to handle the flashback itself. And Frankie was essentially just told, change your name and leave, and I was kind of fucked up over that. I was under the impression that Frankie had just decided crime pays and I'd rather do that. But what it looks like happened is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that Icebarg is basically I'm giving you a mission to go undercover and kicking you out, and you have to find a new life and make a new entire sort of life for yourself. And while I get the importance to Icebarg, at least, of what it is he's protecting and what he's doing, it just felt deeply unfair to me. You know, like Frankie apparently might not be a criminal at heart necessarily. It's sort of making his responses to Usopp earlier in this season or this arc make sense, where Usopp is like, I want the money back. And Frankie keeps saying, it's not even really yours. You probably just stole it from someone else. And if Frankie wasn't really like that excited to be a pirate and be a criminal, I could see this being more appealing to him because he feels like he's at least doing something that's like, yeah, stealing is wrong, but stealing from thieves is less wrong. So it's like not weighing on my conscience quite as much. And I'm saying this again, I'm giving continually Frankie too much credit. I am aware of that. I don't know why I'm doing it. I just kind of like the guy. And so I'm just like creating narratives. But I like to think that, yeah, maybe he wasn't the kind of criminal everybody has been thinking. He's certainly violent. He likes to fight. I'm interested to know how he became what he became. We don't really get that story. But it looks like he is already a cyborg in these flashbacks. So this isn't something that happened as like a result of whatever, you know, the story was that he gave for leaving the right side of the tracks, I guess, and going into the underworld. But anyway, so Frankie got a raw deal is what I'm saying. There's also a moment here where like Icebarg says something like to Lucci, and Lucci just fucking kicks him in the face and is like, well, that's what you get for talking to me like you're still the boss. I don't work for you anymore, so you don't get to throw attitude at me. And that was the first time that I was genuinely like, wow, fuck you, Lucci. Lucci's out here telling him, I betrayed you for 8 years. I've turned on you. I just shot you. And all of that. I'm just like, well, you know. And then he just like is rude. And I'm like, wow, okay, that's too far. Fuck this guy. So this is when he's just like, and you've served your purpose. So I guess it's time to shoot you in the head. And all of a sudden, Luffy just like comes through the wall. And Lucci's reaction is so great. First, Lucci just says, you again? And then later, when he's like, so you want Robin? And Luffy's like, yeah, that's right! And Lucci just goes, there's no need to be so loud. He yells that at Tilestone at one point as well. I think it's just like, wow, so you're a loud one. I just find that very funny. Like, he kind of gives the same energy off a little bit as Zorro does, of just being impatient with most things and just vaguely like overtired and seeming like put upon no matter what he does. So yeah, he comes sailing into the room on the one side, and Zorro comes sailing into the room on the other side. So they wind up like doing a pincer movement that could have maybe been quite effective against these guys, except that they did not plan it ahead of time. And a lot of them are not aware of what's going on here. So Luffy, for his part, is still looking for Robin. And I have got to admit, you guys, I am continually surprised every time I am reminded that the stakes for some of our crew members are just, we need to get Robin to explain what happened and come back to the crew. I deeply respect the need for an explanation from Robin. That I could be like, yeah, wanting to track her down and just be like, well, what the fuck? Even that, though, I don't feel like she has been as dishonest with them that they should have formed the kind of bond where a betrayal is particularly hurtful or surprising. You know, I have said many times since she joined the crew that she does not feel like a part of things, and she's never really like included in a lot of things. She either offers to come along because it seems like she's got nothing better to do, or she will go off and do her own thing. And it's a completely separate part of the story from everyone else's. So it's just funny to me how they keep on being like, how could you do this? And I'm just like, really? How could she? Like, come on. Because she doesn't give a shit, kiddos. And I keep thinking about how when she was being frozen by that man, she said, I'm not, and then like got frozen. And what I think she may have been about to say before being frozen, and my theory had been, I'm not that person anymore. But now I'm even more curious because she still is that person. And I don't know if she was trying to get away from it and walking past somebody on Water 7 who said CP9 was basically them being like, we got you, bitch. Like maybe she had been trying to leave this life behind and they caught up with her in a way she was not expecting at all. And she had to go back. But she has given a lot of chances to say she didn't really want this, and she doesn't. However, she's also in front of CP9 agents when she is insisting, I will make any sacrifice I need to make. And that could just be part of the cover. If she either meant to like defect forever and bail, or if she was like, I'm just going to pretend I'm still a part of things, but kind of just do what I want. Either way, she has to make it look good. And there's no way to be like, well, they made me. I didn't want to, guys. And then like walk away with the CP9 crew and be fine. They are going to be like, oh, really? Well, that's interesting. We're going to burn your friends alive in the fire. And then we'll talk to you after about what's going on there. She has to be like, I am 100% fully in this and I believe in it and I mean to do it and I am not sorry. She kind of has to handle it that way. So I'm going to still be giving her the benefit of the doubt that she is not wanting any of this. But even if that's true, I just don't get why anybody cares that much about Robin beyond the fact that she is part of the collection and I want the whole set. And truly, I can't be asked to care. Like, I feel bad about it because I want to know. I do want the whole real story and I'm clearly not getting it yet. But I don't actually feel the motivation of anybody who's trying to get her to stay and reconnect and explain. It's all me just being like, look, you really need to like begin to understand that not all friendships are the kind of friendships you have with the rest of the crew. It's not always like that, and that's fine. Friendships have levels, you know? So Seraphim says, I am loving your Robin speculation. Some very good thoughts here. Thank you. Once Luffy decides you are his Nakama, that's it. What does Nakama mean? Seraphim, sorry. Is that crew member? Is that soulmate? Soul crewmate? But yeah, it's just like I said, I can understand the plot needing everybody to care because they can't just walk away from Robin and be like, well, that bitch just bailed. I guess that's over. I get it. You can't do that. But they are truly very ferocious about like, how can you do this to us? And I'm just like, kiddos, I don't know how to tell you this, but she been doing shit. Seraphim says friend, basically. Gus says crewmate, and Seraphim says, but like found family type friendship. Gotcha. Okay, cool. Found family, best family, straight up. So, okay. I'm just bouncing around so much with talking about this that I'm still like looking at the first of these 2 episodes, but I've really talked much further into the next episode already, so that's fine. And fucking Polly. Lucci says something to him like, you'd forgive us if we apologize, right? If you can't believe me because this is too sudden, maybe I should just... And I think in the dub he says something like, cave in Icebarg's face. And I was just, damn, that is cold-blooded. After all, the bull-masked man's voice I heard earlier is the same voice as yours. Damn it, you bastard. You can talk just fine. That was a nice, like, I had not put it together that Lucci was one of the only people that we heard speak, and that, and by people we heard speak, I mean like wearing the mask. He was one of the only agents, and that he never spoke in his own voice, so that would mean nobody would recognize his voice. It's like actually a pretty good explanation, and if I had really stopped and like thought, is somebody close to Icebarg under that mask, I may have started to go down the trail about the voice, but because I didn't think that it was anybody close, it just never occurred to me to begin with. So I really liked that detail because I hadn't even thought about that part, you know, his voice being recognizable. I think I have too much of that, like, that thing in my head of voices once you're in a mask, whether it's a cartoon or live action, the audience just sort of has to accept that now your voice is also unrecognizable. And it's a really inconsistently applied rule, depending on what you're watching. But often it does sort of get treated like that, you know? And sometimes they have an in-world explanation as to why, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes the character themselves, like, has dialogue about trying to talk differently. But I always just sort of am willing to accept, yeah, they just sound different because they're in a mask, and that's just like a voice disguise also, even though it doesn't make sense. So I was just sort of going with that because I wasn't thinking through the fact that Lucci never spoke. So anyway, this is when the fight begins because Polly starts to go for Lucci. And this is when Lucci uses finger pistol, I think is what it's called. And he really just stabs his finger right through Polly's chest. Like, not into his heart, but through a spot very near his heart. Like, Polly goes down, and it does not feel like he's going to continue fighting particularly well or at all. And I gotta say, I'm not trying to say that finger pistol isn't like a pretty good name for like what he's doing, but I also can't say that I didn't laugh like every time he said it because it just sounds so sexual. It just sounds like he's talking about sex. But anyway, we also get Iron Body here. And kiddos who read Cradle, I was like, it's the Steelborn Iron Body, TM. Steelborn Iron Body, registered trademark. Steelborn Iron Body, get it today. It just kept... y'all know what I'm talking about if you read it. And I do not think that that is an accident because, you know, we are aware that Will White is a big One Piece fan. So I am sure there are so many things that he drew inspiration from that I still haven't even seen. But it's just interesting, especially because like the way I'm beginning to understand how techniques are used in this universe and the way people specifically name the technique before they use them. It also is like, oh, okay. So that's where all that came from also. And the iron body thing is apparently all the CP9s can do it. If not all of them, at least I think 3 of them we've seen do it, if I'm not mistaken. And that really sucks for Luffy because he is trying to beat the hell out of them. But let me tell you, rubber does not do too much to iron. It's just very ineffective. So he is going at these guys with everything he's got, and then it's just like, why doesn't anything work? And I'm like, because you are the wrong material to go up against this, sir. Then of course we have Zorro jumping in and his like back and forth with Square Nose, and Robin throughout all of this is just trying to fucking bail, which is part of why I felt like she wasn't really into things in the way that CP9 might be thinking. Like, she is just wanting to do her own thing as usual. She's just, you know? So she's at the window and Zorro says something to Luffy like, don't let Robin get away. And Robin literally just like jumps out, and I am assuming uses her weird power to like carry herself safely down. I can't remember if we have seen a flying power from her before. I feel maybe we have. I don't really remember. But I don't think she needs it because she can just carry people with her hands all over the place. So probably with this, she'll be fine. There's a wall right here. And then we get Square Nose using finger pistol on Zorro and saying, we don't need bullets to shoot through human bodies. Poor Luffy is getting his whole face held by Lucci, he is literally holding Luffy by the face up in the air. Like, and Luffy is just going to town on him, and it's doing zero, not a thing. It's so embarrassing. I love Nami and Chopper just watching this going, wow, he got caught really easily. So this is when Lucci says, ever since, because at first Polly asks, what the hell are you guys? And Lucci says, we grew up in a different environment. Ever since we can remember, we've been prepared to risk our lives and trained to surpass the limits of human abilities. And when he says that and the camera pans over Blue Nose's face, that did not feel true. I'm just looking at Blue Nose and his dead expression, bored as fuck. And the fact that I am supposed to believe that this man has a very special set of skills. And I'm like, I know I just saw it, but I don't buy it. I am not buying it. I just don't buy it. So let's see. Demian says the entire naming attacks and techniques thing is just part of the Far Eastern martial arts stories, which is why you commonly find it in manga, but also in Chinese Zhanjia stories. Am I saying that right? Because I have seen that name before and I never know how to say it. Zhanjia? Because X's are pronounced like Z's. Is that right? The entire cultivator thing from Cradle is very much a staple of Chinese cultivation / Zhanjia stories born out of martial arts legends and Taoism. Okay, so, and I knew that about the cultivation and like where that comes, because I looked into that a little bit after finishing Cradle. I was just like, I ran across some other book series that I started listening to that used the same type of magical system, which was the first time that I realized, oh, Will White didn't just come up with this magical system apparently. And I went and like read about more of it, but that book series was not as interesting. Let me tell you guys, it's not a slam dunk every time. Gus says, yeah, they don't need to say the move to use it, but they do because it's fun, I guess. I think Luffy has done a move a couple times without saying it, if I remember. Yeah, I get the impression that it's said for the fans. Like, I am sure people are out there just documenting every character and all of the attacks they use, and probably being like, actually, he can't do that attack. This is the first time he's ever done it, and we've seen this character for 150 episodes, and now all of a sudden he pulls out this new technique. I don't buy it. I'm sure somebody out there has spreadsheets. I don't know, maybe Yoda does, but honestly, it feels like authors do that a lot less than they should, and it's the fans that tend to do that stuff. But yeah, the naming attacks, I did not know that that was just like part of martial arts stories as well. I didn't realize that. So, okay, I have to wrap this up because I'm getting towards the end here. But yeah, he says we've mastered the 6 superhuman techniques called Rokushiki. I'm sure you've fully learned by now that the 4 of us are basically, he just says, like, we're, like, better than you. Y'all are very weak. No offense, but, like, full offense, because we hate you and we hope you die soon. And we are about to show you just how outmatched you are. And he begins to grow in front of them. And I already mentioned, like, kind of offhanded that this building is, like, rigged to blow. And so this is sort of hovering over everything that the CP9 people are going to be, like, bailing, but they have to make sure that the Straw Hats can't get out. But the trigger for him, like, changing is Khalifa saying, oh, the timer is about to go off. We really had better hurry. And then he begins to rise up to the level that he's casting a shadow over everybody in the room. And his, like, features, because the way he's drawn is a big black silhouette with light gray lines, sort of denoting details in features. But there's no shading or anything. It's just lines. And he looks like he's pretty much the same in terms of, like, his overall features. They're just bigger and wider than before. And I might be wrong about that. At first I thought he was transforming into, like, an animal or something. But it sort of looks like it's just that he can be a very big man. And I guess we'll find out next episode. I do not know. But yeah, this has been full of surprises, this one. So I feel a little bit bad because Luffy really, it doesn't feel like he has a lot he can do to these guys, you know? And then the storm is coming. And again, it's taking its sweet time getting here, granted. But how is that going to play into things? Because part of me feels like the storm has to be a bit of what they can use against these dudes, but I don't know. And then, so, I'm sorry, Gus says they don't translate Rokushiki, but they translate finger pistol. It translates as 6 powers. Oh, all right. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know why, but that's how they did it. Oh, and I should mention too, that, is it Kokoro? Is that the name of the lady who drinks all the time? There's like a little aside with her and Chimney, and she's saying something like she's trying to sober up. And Chimney is like, well, you're still drinking, so you can't be trying that hard. And she replies with like, why do you think I've been drinking my whole life? I've got this down. To which Chimney says, you haven't been drinking your whole life. What do you even mean? And she like skips away, and Kokoro is left there going, oh yeah, I've only been drinking for like 8 years. And that felt like it meant something. And I'm like, is that Tom? Because like Tom is the name of their mentor. Like, what if it was Kokoro? And Kokoro feels like a sleeper character. Like they're about to be important for reasons, and their drinking is about to have like an explanation behind it. which, if it does, I will appreciate it, because honestly, just having a character who's drunk in the story just for the fun of it sucks a little. So I wouldn't mind if there's like a reason, but we'll see. Anyway, all right, I have to wrap it up. Thank you guys again so much for listening. Appreciate you all, and I will see you soon with a new episode. Till then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.